Every 4 years, billions of people stop what they're doing to watch the FIFA World Cup. Goals get celebrated, trophies get lifted, heroes get made. But while fans focus on the pitch, something far more expensive is happening behind the scenes. Governments are spending tens of billions of dollars. Cities are rebuilding airports, highways, and entire neighborhoods. And the competition to host? That battle is just as fierce as anything that happens on the field. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why countries pour that kind of money into a single month of football and whether it actually pays off. First, the price tag that makes most people's jaws drop. Hosting the World Cup costs more than most people realize. Total expenses for a host nation, including infrastructure and organization, can reach up to $20 billion. That's not a typo. $20 billion. For 1 month of football, South Africa spent approximately $3.6 billion on World Cup-related infrastructure for the 2010 tournament alone, according to the World Bank. And that was considered a relatively lean operation. Every host country is writing a check that most governments would struggle to sign twice. But here's what makes it stranger. Almost every major football nation still wants to do it. The first FIFA World Cup took place in 1930 in Uruguay. Only 13 teams showed up. Uruguay won on home soil, but the real story was what FIFA had just proved. That you could build an entire global event around football, and the world would eventually pay attention. Fast forward nearly a century, and the 2026 edition will feature 48 teams and 104 matches across 16 cities in 3 countries. From 13 teams to 48, from 1 stadium to 16 cities. The growth is almost impossible to wrap your head around. And that growth is exactly why the money keeps flowing. When Russia hosted in 2018, over 850,000 international tourists arrived in a single month. Hotel occupancy in major host cities regularly exceeded 90%. Airlines added extra routes. Local vendors sold out. The economic activity wasn't confined to stadiums. It spilled across entire cities, and none of that money disappears when the final whistle blows. Here's a number that surprises people. The value of official broadcasting rights for the 2022 World Cup was estimated at around $3 billion. Add sponsorships, hospitality, and licensing, and FIFA generated approximately $7.5 billion in revenue during that entire World Cup cycle. The host country builds the venues. FIFA collects the bulk of the commercial returns. The financial math isn't always as clean as the brochure suggests. So if FIFA wins big either way, why do countries still line up to host? Soft power. FIFA estimates the 2022 tournament reached around 5 billion people across television, streaming, and digital platforms. No advertising campaign, no political speech, no trade deal gets that kind of reach in a single month. Modern airports, efficient trains, beautiful cities. A successful World Cup puts all of that on display to 5 billion people simultaneously. For a country trying to attract foreign investment or tourism, that kind of global attention is nearly impossible to buy any other way, which makes Qatar's story complicated. The 2022 World Cup was historic. The first held in the Middle East, the first played in November and December. It was also one of the most debated hosting decisions in the tournament's history. Amnesty International raised serious criticisms over labor conditions for migrant workers involved in construction. It proved that hosting the World Cup doesn't just put your best side on display. Sometimes it puts your worst in the spotlight too. 2010. South Africa, the first African nation to host. The lead-up was filled with doubt. Concerns about infrastructure, safety, and logistics. South Africa answered by delivering a tournament that most observers called a genuine success. Vuvuzelas filled stadiums. Fans from every corner of the globe arrived. A continent that critics had written off proved it could run one of the largest sporting events on Earth. That wasn't just a football story. That was a statement. 1994. The United States hosted the World Cup at a time when soccer was barely a mainstream sport in North America. Would American audiences even care? The answer was yes. Attendance records were broken. MLS launched the year after. Hosting one tournament didn't transform American football culture overnight, but it started a chain reaction that took decades to fully develop. Now, in 2026, the US returns as co-host alongside Canada and Mexico. 3 nations sharing one event despite ongoing political disagreements over trade, immigration, and border policy. Football doing what diplomacy sometimes cannot. The legacy debate is where economists still argue. The 2014 World Cup in Brazil generated an estimated $2 billion in economic impact. But Brazil spent far more than that preparing for the tournament. Some stadiums built specifically for the event have since struggled to find consistent long-term use. Infrastructure built for a tournament doesn't automatically become a community asset. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it sits half empty. The answer is rarely simple, but there's one benefit that nobody debates. Airports expanded for the World Cup keep serving travelers for decades. Transit systems upgraded for tournament logistics become part of daily life for millions of residents. And children who watched their country host the world's biggest football tournament grow up dreaming of representing their nation on that same stage. The 2026 tournament will be watched by billions of people. It will leave behind new infrastructure, international partnerships, and memories that shape how nations see themselves and how the world sees them. Every country that has ever hosted the World Cup was making a bet, not just on football, but on themselves. Some bets paid off immediately. Some took decades. Some are still being evaluated. The spending is real. The risks are real. The controversies are real. But so is the reach, the influence, and the change that follows. From Uruguay in 1930 to the three-nation co-host in 2026, the World Cup has never just been about who wins the trophy. It's about who gets to shape what the world sees, thinks, and remembers. And that competition, the one happening long before and long after every match, never really ends.